All right, guys. So let's go for our last stretch for today. So let's recap a little bit our original question. The original question, or part of the original question, was: can there be? So is God and logic basically? Okay. So let's recap it this way. So when we ask the question God and logic, there can be three questions that this could, as I said it in the introduction. God and logic. Are they friends or enemies? So this question can be asked in three ways. Is the existence of God something that can be logically derived? Logically. Two L's or one L?
Yes. Two.
Logically. That's question number one. Question number two. Can we understand God? Question number three. Is God limited to the rules of logic? In other words, is logic a deterministic existence, or is it a created existence? So logic, determined or created? Or created? So these are the three questions. And now it's time, and the last question and the third question is a deeper idea. We're going to deal with it later on. That now it's time to make an order in the first two questions. So, what did we say? We said God existence can be logically proven. Not only that, part of God's logical proof also entails that we cannot understand God. So those two things must go together. If I say that I can prove God's existence, the type of God that its existence can be proven is the type of God that cannot be understood. So just to make sure everyone understands the difference. If I say, I know there was a man who was Shakespeare, it doesn't mean I know Shakespeare, or I can say who he is. I can say who he's. So for example, in regards to God, I can give what it's called in Hasidic thought negative descriptions. I cannot give positive descriptions. I can say what he is not. For example, he is unlimited. That's a description, but that's a negative description. I say what he is not. I don't say what he is. So meaning, I can come to understand that there is a God, and at the same time, this understanding and logical proof entails also that this God cannot be understood. So, this idea of understanding something, understanding the existence of something, but not understanding its essence, is a very commonly quoted Hasidic idea, which is called Yediat HaMetziut v'Havanat HaMahut. So we'll write it down, okay? Yediat HaMetziut, the knowing of existence of something, and Havanat HaMahut, the understanding of essence. So the example that it's given, and it's also going to be given in this text, in the future sections, like for example, the idea of a soul. Everybody knows that there is such a thing as a soul. Something which makes us live. What it is, that's not something we can know. It's not something that we can really define. So it's like this type of thing that you can sense its existence, but you can't really define what it is. So typically, it's those things that you see their effect, you see their effect, and through their effect, you can prove that they are, but you don't know what they are. Black holes. What do you know about black holes? We know they exist because we see a certain phenomena that make us understand that such an illogical thing exists, but we don't know. We can't really define what they are, or why they are, or what they are. So we know about the black hole. We know their existence, but we don't understand their essence. So God Himself is also this type of can be related with knowledge in this sense. God is something we can come to understand it exists because we just look around the world. So it had to come from somewhere, right? In simple words. So we know God exists, but we cannot define what God is. And this is part of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. But here is a certain chidush. A certain, how would you say chidush in English?
Novelty.
A certain novelty, that's the word. And there's no such word in Hungarian, by the way. It's like, you can't really, I always trouble for the word in Hungarian as well. So there's a certain novelty here that Hasidic philosophy brings in. And he says, you could really say that God has two faces. In a way, to put it in simple terms. He has a face that can be understood, and he has a face that cannot be understood. So far, we only spoke about his face that cannot be understood. That's his essence. So his essence is ununderstandable. But he also has a face that can be understood. And that face is what? That face is his relationship with us. So, for example, let's even speak about a person. So I have a friend, Michael, and I get to know him. So do I get to know him? No, not really. I get to know the part of him which has a relationship with me. So I can only know those parts that have a relationship with me. Now, if I'm his wife, I spend a long time with him, I will get to know a lot of his faces because his relationship with me will entail a lot of situations and a lot of ways, in a lot of ways where he reveals himself. So I know Michael, I only know him on a certain level because I know him through work or through studies together, but I don't know his emotional life. There's a lot of things I don't know about him. Because I can only know a person through the revelations, the way he reveals himself to me. Can there be a relationship where I know the person's essence? Probably not. Because even if I spend with someone a long, long time, I will only know him by the certain revelations he has. So it says in the Talmud, it's a famous saying, Achrei arba'in shnin koim inish adaite derabe, which in Aramaic would mean, after 40 years, a student stands on the mind of his master. Stand is, I don't know if that's the right word, stand on the mind of his master. What does that mean? Oh, after 40 years, he finally understands what his master said. Well, that's not such a good student if he needs 40 years to understand what his master said. So Hasidus explains, no, it's a deeper meaning. It means, at certain times if your master said something, you memorized it, somebody will ask you, what did the master say about this and that? You could say, oh, he said it 25 years ago, he mentioned this in this speech, he said this and this. That's pretty nice. But even nicer, when you get to know him so well, there's a question that was never raised by your master, and suddenly somebody asks this question and you say, well, I'm sure my master would answer this and that. Then you not only memorize what he said, you actually stand on his mind. You almost took the mind itself and put it in your brain. And that needs 40 years. Why does it need 40 years? Because no matter how sorgalmash, what's the word? Diligent you are, and how much you learn, you just need so many types of revelation of him to try to figure out what is inside, what is the essence, that the 40-year period really represents symbolically this long-term time. That's why we were 40 years in the desert. That's why Moses was 40 years our leader, and all this 40-year aspect keeps coming back. But still, even in such a case, you can't really define your master's essence. You can feel it. You can say, he would say so and so. But somebody asks you, okay, so write me a book about your master's essence. You can't, because it's something with his essence could become part of your essence, but it's not something you can grasp, his essence, because essence by definition is ungraspable. So basically, the same way it is with your master, you and a student and a master, same is true with God and us. We can understand his revelations, the way he reveals himself to us, but it's always going to be through a certain glass of a certain color. It's always going to be through the revelation he expressed himself through us. The essence itself is ununderstandable. So Chassidus said like this: if we would take, what did we say? We said God's existence is provable, but this existence cannot be understood. Right? What is this but that cannot be understood? The essence of God. But there is something else of God that can be understood. The revelation of God. Reva. A?
Yeah.
A. Okay? So there is the godly essence.
Meaning his past interactions with humanity.
Let's say so. Okay? Just for the sake of for the argument. His essence cannot be understood, but his revelation can be understood. What is his revelation? Well, yeah, you said how did you
His past interactions with humanity.
Yeah, let's leave the word past. His interactions with humanity. Why did I leave out the word past? Because it's not only his past, let's say, he revealed himself to Eliyahu Hanavi, and now we understand, or he revealed himself to Moses. He reveals himself to us in a way through the medium of his creation every day. So if I understand nature better, I get to know the Creator better. Right? So understanding, like getting to know Shakespeare. How do I know Shakespeare? How do I get to know him? Let me read his book. Let me read his book again. Let me read his book the third time. Let me think about his book. Let me write certain notes about his book. Let me compare his book to other books. Let me compare some of his books to some of other books. So I understand more and more Shakespeare. Do you understand more and more Shakespeare? No. You understand his revelation more and more. But a certain aspect of him, yes.
Shakespeare is dead. God can change his mind and can behave differently.
100%. So we can speak about if we're living in Shakespeare's time, or we can speak about a live person. You can understand Michael through speaking to him, reading his books and everything else. It doesn't matter if he changes his mind. It just shows us if it changes his mind. It just proves my point even better, that everything you understand of him is just his revelation. He can change his revelation, and then you understand. So it's true. You never get to understand his essence. So you can understand God's revelation, but you cannot understand God's essence. And Chassidus calls these two levels something very, very often mentioned, two topics, which is called Sovev Kol Almin. This is a Kabbalistic term. The light that evolves around? Surrounds. The godly light parentheses, that surrounds the worlds. So sovev means surround. In short, we just say sovev. Surrounds the world. And the godly light which memale kol ha'olamim. Which means, which fills the worlds. So, fills, memale. So there's two levels. Sovev, that's godliness on its essence almost. I'm simplifying it now because in Hasidus explains that Sovev is even not its essence. But let's just, for the sake of the understanding on a simple level. Sovev is the godly essence which surrounds the world. And then there is the godly light which comes into the world and fills the world. What does it mean, surrounds the world? It's like Zoltan would probably say, yeah, it surrounds the universe. Some physical... No, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about some spiritual sense. So let me give an example. And by the way, you realize now I'm going to give examples a lot between master and student. Because it's also something which is like probably one of the most common examples metaphors brought in Hasidic philosophy. So what is... I explain you something. And I explain you something which is a very deep thought. So if I'm successful and I explain it to you, it like is revealed from me and it goes into your mind and it fills your mind, right? It becomes yours. So that's memale kol ha'olamim. That's something which revealed from me and getting into you. Sovev kol ha'olamim is, I explain you something, but in order to explain you this idea, as we mentioned before, the difference between thought and speech, when we spoke about thought and speech, I need to cut some of the edges of this idea. I need to simplify it. Because there's so much to it. I learned about this idea for 40 years, and I'm going to give it to you in just a half an hour. I cannot say the whole 40 years in a half an hour. I have to make some concessions. I have to, compromise a little bit, and a lot. Which means I need to simplify it. I need to take away a lot of the details. I need to not fully say the whole depth of the idea, just a simpler idea. And a lot of this stuff is going to stay by me. And what I'm going to give you is just a simple idea. But still, you listen to me and you say, wow, this is really deep stuff. I'm sure there's much more to it than what this guy just told me. So it really surrounds you. It's something that like hollows over you. You feel there is a depth to this idea that you don't know, you don't understand it, but you feel its effect on you. So you sit with sometimes when we were young, we had to learn Russian in school. And there was a joke in the school that, I think all of us that are Hungarians went through this joke. I know this joke that Russian, nobody knows Russian, even people that learned 8 years Russian. And the reason is because it was mandatory and the Russian teachers themselves were only one lesson ahead of us. So they had a Russian language book and they were like one lesson ahead of us. Well, he read it, he can get it over. But basically, that's all he had. There's nothing else left in his brain. Everything he knew, he gave it over to you. Now, you have sometimes these teachers, you feel like, okay, this guy took some book, he took a book off the shelf, he read one chapter, and he comes to you and he explains to you. So the words are correct. You know, like the joke, there's a joke with this rabbi and his shamash. It was, his secretary. They were going around. The rabbi was giving a speech. And each town he gave a speech, the same speech. And it's a beautiful speech. People are, wow, what a beautiful, deep speech. But the secretary, after like 3-4 times he accompanied the rabbi, he's like, hey, you're not so smart as you seemed. You're saying the same speech. I can say the same speech too. I listened to it 4 or 5 times. I know it by heart. I can say it word for word. So they said, the rabbi said, you know what? Let's change. Next time we go, you play the rabbi, and I'll be your secretary. I can take a rest. So he says, okay, no problem. So they go to the next town. He gets up front of the crowd. He says the whole speech. Wow, everybody's clapping. Unbelievable. And then one guy says, I want to ask a question. So he asks a question, and the guy has no clue because he doesn't know what the real... So he goes, this question? It's a simple question. Even my secretary can answer it. So, basically, what is the difference between a teacher? that, you feel like there's no depth over there. Everything he just read, he's giving you over the stuff that you could have read yourself in a book. And then sometimes there's a teacher who say, well, this is really deep stuff, what he's telling us. I imagine he seems like there's a lot more he wanted to say, just he couldn't tell us because he's so smart and we are so stupid or so unknowledgeable for this idea. So you feel that there is a depth to it. It has an effect on you, but it doesn't come into you. So it's not a memale. Same true with God. So there is certain aspects of God we can understand. God is a creator. Yeah, that's understandable. It's just pretty cool in itself. I mean, if you think about the nature and the complexity of nature, you're like, wow, this guy was really smart. This is really clever. The way he put this thing together is really, really clever. Everything fits and everything. The whole nature thing is like really logical and it's really cool. But you still say, yeah, but I imagine he has much more to him. Stuff that I cannot understand, I will never understand because, as we said, it's the unlimited part of him. And that is Sovev Kol Amin. You do get the feeling that it is there because you even can get to the conclusion that it's there. You can get to the conclusion that it's there even through logic, but you cannot grasp the thing itself. So, if so, then we say the following. There is the Sovev Kol Amin aspect of God, the essential part of God, which is really his essence. His ungraspable, ununderstandable, by definition, indefinable part, which just surrounds us. It's not something we will ever able to understand or grasp. And then there is the Memale Kol Amin aspect of God. The aspect of God which is understandable, that is the face of God which has a relationship with us. So do you know I remember I was once at I took like a whole group of students to Israel like 10, 15 years ago. And we had a lot of discussions on the trip. And there was this kid was a pretty smart kid, and we had a lot of discussions about God. So we went through this whole thing of is God, can we prove that there is a God and all that. And he was really surprised by, the depth of the conversation. And he said, yeah, I agree. Ultimately, you can prove that there is this unlimited, unconditional, all the stuff we spoke about. But I have a problem. This is all good and nice. I don't see any traces of this in the Torah. Because the Torah speaks of a God that gets angry, a God that is, has certain expectations of us, and he looks like a pretty, we wouldn't say we are created in his image, so it's like a limited type of existence.
Fatherly figure.
Yeah, the fatherly figure. That's right. So it's a figure. It's a figure, and it's even if you read the Talmud, it's even more so. It's like really we take God to a court case and we have an argument with him, and there's stories in the Talmud where the sages have an argument with God, and at the end of the story they are right, and God says, okay, you guys won. All these stories are like, what? This has nothing to do with that unconditional, ununderstandable, ungraspable, unlimited existence. So how does that cope with what you're saying, Shlomo? So I told him, he has a very good point. God is two-faced. So there is a face of God, which is in most of the Torah, which is Memale Kol Amin. That's the face of God which fills the world. And that's the face of God which through most people have a relationship with God. Because in order to have a relationship, you need to have something graspable to have a relationship with. But that's not the ultimate essence of God. And there's one story in the Torah which states this extremely clearly, with extreme clarity. And that is the story of Moses arguing with God or asking God to show his essence, to show his face. I'm sure all familiar with the story. It's in the context of the Jews, again, going through some very unacceptable things. At that time, they were making the golden calf. And Moses comes down, and God gets all upset, and he wants to destroy all the people. And Moses tells him, no, don't do it. And yes, do it, don't do it. And God tells him, okay, you know what? Actually, I see you're a good man. Let me show you how you have to pray for mercy. So he tells him how to pray for mercy, and God forgives. And Moses sees it's really going well. They really got into a good relationship. So he thinks this is the right time to ask God, okay, I want to see your essence. So God tells him, no, that's not possible. I can go passed through by you, you could see my back, you cannot see my face. Because no alive person can see my face. And the Rambam explains, what does that mean? That whatever we understand of God is only is there a word outernal? Like the external, I'm sorry. Only an external aspect of God, which means all those aspects that have a relationship with God. But his internal, essential existence is not something which can be understood, which can be grasped. It can be proven, but cannot be grasped. So ultimately, in order to finish off this discussion, we will get to something like, so God can be proven, that's a matter of logic. God, in the matter of his relationship with us, can be even understood. So his revelations towards us can be understood. But to have a relationship with God the way he is in his essential form, you cannot use your brain. You have to use your faith. So, brains can be used for proving that there is a God. That still doesn't make you have a relationship with him. Brains can be used for understanding God the way he reveals himself to us. But brains cannot be used as a tool to have a relationship with the God as his essential level, which is ungraspable. So what can I have a relationship with God on the way of his essence? You guys, because now we took like one more step. I was saying the same thing over and over. Now I took one more step and then didn't give the whole drama behind it. So I want to make it more dramatic. We just came to understand where the place of faith is. Because we said, till now we were like, oh, everything can be understood. We can understand that there is a God. We can understand he's unlimited. We can even understand the part of him that he reveals himself in the world and has a relationship with us. Yeah, but there's one aspect of him that you cannot understand. You cannot grasp. What is that aspect? His essence. So can I have an ongoing relationship with that part of God, which is his essence? That's the question. And the answer is yes. Just not through brains, through faith. Wow. So what does that mean? If so, and we're gonna discuss this more tomorrow, but the question is then, what is really faith? What is faith? Because we started off with faith as something coming from a very Marxist point of view, that faith is just hiatus, how would you say that in English? It's like
Deficiency.
A what?
Deficiency.
It's not a positive thing. It's just, if you don't understand, you have faith. But people that understand, the more you understand, the less you have faith, right? So faith is really not needed. It's just a blemish. It's not a. We say no. Faith is actually a pretty strong attribute of your soul, and it's an attribute that is needed. So Hasidus says a person has a set of tools in his soul. He has a set of attributes. You have the capability of love, the capability of mercy, the capability of hatred, the capability of strictness, the capability of consistency, the capability of relationship. There's a lot of capabilities you have. These are all tools of your soul. You also have your cognitive tools, like to understand, to grasp, to know. And then there's also a tool of your soul, which is called faith. And this tool is as much useful and needed just like brains. Like someone would say, I don't need faith. It's just like saying, well, I don't need love. What are you talking about? You need love, or you need hate. You need to hate bad things, for example. So a person that cannot hate is a person with not a full, not a complete soul. He's psychologically not complete. And the same way is true about love and brains, same way is true with faith. And we actually see all people have faith. We're not speaking about faith in what, but most people use this attribute of their soul pretty commonly. They use this tool, whatever it is, we don't know yet what it is, to have a relationship with something that cannot be grasped. And we will get to what this means, but just when we say faith, you got to differentiate between the capability of faith and the object of faith. The same way when you speak about love, you have the capability of love. You're not talking about love what? You could love good things, bad things. You could love someone that deserves your love. You can love someone that doesn't deserve your love. That's a whole different question. It's a whole different topic. That's the object of your love. But you have the capability to love. That's a soul, the capability of the soul. Same is true when we speak about faith. You have to think about faith as a mental tool and as an object of that mental tool. And this is two separate things. We see that most people use this tool of faith pretty often. What they use it for is a different question. And that might not be correct. The same way most people use their tool of love, and unfortunately many people don't use it for the right thing, and so on and so forth. So you have to differentiate. But what we're saying here now is that you do need this tool of faith, and this is the tool through which you can have a relationship in whatever way it is with that level of godliness which is not understandable. Questions? No questions.
But, okay, I mean, just as well, I know it's a little bit quick. Just it came to my mind that this is like this unconditional love. I mean, even between two, I don't want to compare two human beings to God. This is not what I'm saying. Just let's imagine there is this unconditional love between two, people, and this is the same. I mean, even though there is no this essence, because you can't exactly grab the essence of,
Yeah.
this is some kind of like, I don't know how to call it. So this is, so to speak, the game. I mean, this is fascinating. Like, also, like, not everything is revealed. So maybe if God would really, maybe if it would be like possible to reveal the essence of God, maybe then I don't think so. I mean,
Well, the problem is,
yes.
I hate to break the news to you, but the problem is that the essence of God cannot be revealed because, per definition, it's undefinable. So,
I mean, this is wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I just want to say, I like the way you said it, the way you put it, about unconditional love. Just, we need to define a little bit more what love means and how faith is not love. So, for example, in the common language, people many times mix this idea of love of God and faith to God, right? For example, in Christian circles, it's almost like a synonym. So, I love God, I have faith in God, as if the relationship with God is only through love, which is totally not the Jewish perspective. So, love is one attribute. The same way when you, and I think let's speak. Let's use this metaphor of two people being having a relationship, not having love, having a relationship, and it's not by chance that Shir Hashirim, which is the Song of Songs, is all about a relationship story, a love story, but a relationship story, and it's part of the Bible because the sages said that this is a metaphor for the relationship between God and man. Now, the same way when you have a healthy relationship between a man and a wife, a husband and a wife, this relationship entails a lot of, the more tools it will entail, and the more psychological and physical layers it will entail, the more stable this relationship will be, which means there can be a relationship between people, it's only based on love. So they love each other, and love, but relationships don't work that way, right? So relationships also need, for example, dignity or respect, which is it's a different type of attribute, or need strictness, or need also intellectual relationship, right? So the same is true with God. So when we want to have a relationship with God, it's not just about love. I love God. No, I many times don't understand God, or many times I don't love God. I just practice God, or the same way with your wife or your husband. It's not like you have a constant feeling of love. You should once every 20 years. No, I'm just kidding. No, once in a while you have a feeling of love, but it's mostly not just about the feeling of love. It's not like you don't walk around, oh, I love my wife. Yeah, that happens for a few months, and then you stop feeling that, and sometimes you feel it, but the relationship is much deeper than just a feeling. The same is true about God. It's not like, I love God. No, what's the whole story of the the Tevye, the milkman? Is that his relationship with God is not, it's a real relationship. It's a relationship which entails his brains, his dilemmas, his love, his upsetness, everything. So it's a relationship that has all the aspects in it. And we can give an example a little bit, and we'll get to it a little bit further down the road. But we can give a little example of what faith is like in a human godly relationship from a human relationship as well. So, if I have a wife or a husband, as we mentioned before, I get to know my wife and the husband probably, hopefully, the best from all people, right? Because we spend a lot of time together, we share a lot of intimate thoughts and feelings, and in a healthy relationship, your wife or your husband is your soulmate. So you obviously there is limitations to it, but you will share. The more things you're able to share with your soulmate, the better it is. It doesn't always work. You don't have to be like, if I can't share everything with my wife or my husband, then him is no good. But the more it is, the better. So you get to know the other person pretty well. But still, there will be some dark spots over there, like the things that you don't exactly know, and that's normal. Now, but then you could say, wait, if I don't know that, then what do I do with that? Those parts that I don't know. Or I cannot understand, or I don't agree with. For example, let's speak about agreeing. So you don't know what he or she thinks about that, or you know what he or she thinks, but you don't understand it, so you don't agree with it. So how do I cope with that? So the way you cope with it is you just say, let's have emunah. Let's have trust that she knows what she's doing, that this is good for her, and I will respect that. So I will have trust. Actually, the word emunah, which is faith, is made out of, it has two meanings. The word emunah it means either imun or imun. Well, actually, it means two things. Imun means two things. It could mean trust, or it could mean practice. So, it's really not faith. The translation faith is the wrong translation. So, trust is, when you trust somebody, when you don't understand him. So you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I trust you know what you're saying. Like, I don't agree with you, I don't know what you're saying, but I have trust, I put my trust in you. And so there is like a gap between what I put my trust in and the practice. So how do I show I put my trust in it? I cannot develop I cannot show it by understanding you or having a feeling towards this part of you. I could only practice it through practice. So I don't know if that was understood. So there, if you look at a psychological makeup of a person, it's mainly either intellectual or emotional. Things that I can understand or I can grasp either with my eyes or with my brains, I can have emotions about. Things that I don't grasp, things that I can't grasp, I cannot have emotions about. Like, I know I can love this piece of chocolate if I tasted it. If I don't know what it is, I can trust it's good, but I cannot love it. So those parts of your wife and husband that you cannot love because you don't understand, the only thing you can do is practice it. So if she says this is what she wants, all right, I'll practice it. And through practice, you build that relationship even with that part which is not understandable and unlovable or unhateable or whatever because you don't understand. And so too with God. So there's those parts of God that and an essential part, the essential parts of God, we cannot understand. So how do I build a relationship with that part of God? Well, through practice. And that's why trust and practice is the same word. And that's why in Judaism, practice is the most important thing. And that's why it's a whole discussion. Imagine, there's a whole discussion about, out of the 613 mitzvot, 613 commandments, there's one commandment, there's a whole discussion about, is it a commandment or isn't it? And that's faith. Because what is faith? That's not practice. Is it a practical thing? Well, so yes, ultimately faith is practice. Is the thing that you don't understand, you need to have a relationship with. And the only way you can build that relationship is through trust. And trust brings to practice. Or trust is practice by practice. Any other questions? Not for today. Thank God, because I got a little tired. Anyways, so thank you very much. And tomorrow